These are the three most common mental blocks that I see in athletes and that makes them to never achieve their full potential. If you figure out that you have one of those and you're able to overcome, you're going to unlock a new level of performance that maybe you never thought was possible. And that is because the one thing that controls you 100% of the time when you're training, before you play, while you play, after you play, is your brain. And if you're able to take control of that and understand how it operates, how it controls you, how it makes you perform better, and how it controls you to not perform your best, and you're able to take control of that, you are going to perform a lot better. There's no coincidence that the best athletes in the world all agree that the one skill that made it possible for them to achieve so many great things is their brain. So, in this video, I'm going to explain to you the three most common blocks that I see in athletes and how you can overcome them. Starting the list with the grinder mindset. And it is the one that I relate the most to. When I was an athlete, when I was younger, when I was training really hard, trying to become a professional player, I was the hardest worker. I was the athlete who wake up earlier than everyone else, went to training, stayed extra, did game analysis, all possible things I did. The one thing that was the most important thing I was not doing. At that time, I had no clue why I was outperforming everyone in trainings, but underperforming in games. Not feeling like I was using my full potential. I was being average, and I knew that by being average, I was not going to achieve the big goals that I had for myself at that time. And the grinder mindset is so bad because it feels like we're always trying to solve a problem, always keeping your mind busy, always thinking about what's next, always feeling like you don't have time for things, always feeling like you are not allowed to spend time with friends, to watch Netflix, to play video games, to be with your friends. You always have to be working, you always have to be grinding, and that's how you achieve big things. And that is a problem because the reality is, the harder you work doesn't mean that you'll make more progress. In fact, and this I took years to realize, that you are actually making progress when you're taking breaks. And that's crazy if you think. When you are sleeping is when all of those signals that you send to your brain actually become long-term memory. There's research that shows that you actually improve while you sleep. So, if you become that grinder, you're going to become a lot stressed. You're never going to spend time with your family, friends, never enjoying those times because you are always feeling like you're doing something wrong. You are not doing what you're supposed to do. You are not working hard. And others are going to achieve better things because they are working hard. So, not only you never spend time with them or just a few times, but when you do, you are not able to enjoy. You feel like you are not getting as good as you possibly could. You are not becoming the athlete that you could because you're not training more. And even though you are already training a lot, you always feel like you are not doing enough. And that not only decreases the enjoyment in training and in life in general because you're not sleeping enough, you're not enjoying, you're not focused, you're always thinking what's next. You decrease your confidence because you don't feel like you're competent. You're putting in a lot of work and you're not getting the results. There must be something wrong with you. This is the first one. It is extremely common, and the one thing that you have to practice, obviously, the more you work on your mental game, the more likely you are to overcome this. But the one thing that you must work on is on your presence. Not measuring progress in terms of how hard you work, but measuring progress in how well you can develop your skills. So instead of just assigning hours and hours and hours of training, focus on developing skills. And when you're trying to develop those, prioritize those skills. Being there, being the moment, channel your focus into it, prioritize your recovery, sleep well. This is how you're going to develop those skills. And the second one, the perfectionist. If you consider yourself a perfectionist and you take pride on that, you are destroying yourself because you are never going to be perfect. Trying to be a perfectionist, it is completely different than striving for greatness. Striving for greatness requires you to be able to face failure, to face mistakes. And this ability of facing failure, of being vulnerable, being uncomfortable, having others criticizing you, getting embarrassed, and still being able to learn and grow and find enjoyment in that process of failing and learning you become a lot better. On the other side, the perfectionist is worried about not looking bad, about not looking a mistake. And you are putting yourself in that mode of how do I avoid looking bad, and you're not putting yourself in that mode of how do I become better. And this shift makes all the difference in your development. Because if you are consistently worried about not looking bad, you're going to find a lot of possible things that you might get embarrassed. You might put yourself in an uncomfortable scenario, and you start trying to avoid those things. And the more that you start trying to avoid those scenarios, you are shrinking your comfort zone to the point of you don't want to try anything that you don't know because you might fail. On the other side, when you're striving for greatness, you are expanding your comfort zone. You are putting yourself in scenarios that are uncomfortable, you are failing, you are figuring out why you failed, you are trying again, failing again, trying again, failing again, learning, you expand your comfort zone. And the bigger your comfort zone is, the better player you become. Because you are exposing yourself to scenarios that force you to grow. And then you become better. Then you develop those skills, and then you become a better athlete. And that is the opposite of avoiding mistakes. If you're just trying to avoid mistakes, which is what the perfectionist is, you decrease your confidence. Because not only you are not learning, but any scenario in which you make a mistake, you consider yourself a failure. You fear what others might think about you. There's strong evidence in research that perfectionists fail to perform any better than their competitors despite working longer hours. And that is not only in sports, that's in all fields of life. If you are a perfectionist and you are obsessed with the outcome, you are obsessed with a specific thing of looking a specific way for others, you are not going to perform better than others because your confidence will be always low. It doesn't matter how hard you work, how much effort you put in, your confidence will be low because the thing that's driving you to work harder is the avoidance of mistakes. And then when you're facing that opportunity, when you're facing that challenge of being in a partner competition and the possibility of making a mistake in front of thousands of people in a moment that you highly care about, that destroys your confidence. Because your comfort zone is so small and you're trying to compensate that vulnerability, that insecurity with hard work, but then on the times of the competition, it is impossible because you have to perform at that moment. You cannot work harder later. You have to perform at that moment, in that game. And all your insecurities will show up because you are not improving the thing that controls your performance at that time. And that is your confidence. Number 3, actually before, how do we work on that? Improving your ability to learn, to grow, to be comfortable while being uncomfortable. So, put yourself in scenarios that are stressful, that require you to think about, to really make a mistake and be comfortable with that. Manage your emotions to be fine at that moment. The better you get at this and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and being okay with that, the better you get at destroying your perfectionism, the better you get at welcoming mistakes. Number 3, the overthinking. This guy thinks that preparing is the same thing as performing. The more you think about something, the more you think about the game, the more you think about how good the opponent is, the better you're going to perform. And that's not true. Think about this way. I really enjoy this analogy. Think of the preparation phase if you were a driver, and during the preparation, you are making your car better. You are improving the engine, you are improving the wheels, you are improving everything. Preparation phase. Performance phase, the car is there. If you try to change the wheels of the car while you were driving, if you try to change the engine while you were driving, you are not putting your focus on driving the car. You're putting your focus in changing something. And with that, you are not looking forward. You are not looking at the things that you have to do. You are not engaged in the race. You are engaged in changing the car. That lowers your performance. The overthinker feels that urge to think about it. Feels that urge to think about the game, to think about competitors, to think about the preparation, to think about if I did everything correctly, to evaluate and judge himself. The overthinker is always on this mode of solving problems. And not only that decreases your enjoyment, as we already saw, that also destroys your focus because you are signaling to your brain different things that you have to think about. And that will make it impossible for you to enter the zone of flow. Because there are so many stimulus that you're thinking about, they're not able to channel your full energy into the game. And that's what makes you to enter the zone of flow. You can overcome all of those things working on the one thing that controls you 100% of the time, your brain. It only requires doing the right work. Not trying to go extra to the gym, not staying extra hours on the pitch, not judging yourself even more, or just trying to be motivated. You need to change the way your brain works. And that happens through mental preparation. So, to give you an idea of what are the things that I have to work on. The grinder mindset, you have to be more in the present moment and value progress instead of just valuing working hard. The perfectionist, you need to expose yourself to mistakes, make yourself uncomfortable, and become comfortable while being uncomfortable. Being okay with flaws, with mistakes, with failures. And the overthinker, you need to be in the present moment to improve your ability to focus, to be in the moment. Meditation is a great way to do that. But in fact, any situation in which you are able to be there, in the moment, just like you were, that I hope you were during this video. Really focus on the things that I was saying and not scrolling through social media or going back and forth in other activities or speaking to someone or doing other stuff and channeling your focus to multiple things. The idea is to practice your ability to focus, and that is the opposite of the overthinking, of multitasking. Those things are going to make your brain to work in a much better way and make it easy for you to perform when you have to perform, because you're building the skills that will allow you to use the best of your potential. If you want to take the next step to really work on our mental game, there are 2 ways that we can do that. The links for them are in the description of the video. You can join my online program with over 1,000 athletes and incredible results, or work with me one-on-one. Be aware that that is more expensive and there are limited spots for it. But I highly encourage you to join one of the 2, and I am 100% confident that you are going to achieve incredible results when you start taking care of the most important thing of your career, and that is your brain. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon.